It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.
Yo, man. Oh, Miss Rusty. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast here on the Quantum Global Broadcasting Network, QGBN. Here with your host, Rusty Diamond. And you can check out other shows on the network, which I co-host, such as When the Gloves Come Off, the Thinking Man's Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is It with Lizzie and Say by the Ben. And this show is brought to you by Fred Ben Savage's Fox, Stoner Reads Productions, Hardcore Entertainment, Hypnosis is Great, and SuckEmUp.org. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I literally just got done finishing up the last episode with Gabrielle and getting it edited and put up online. And as soon as that happened, boom, I'm right here. So we're just go today. So that's a good thing. I might not have a voice by later on. I feel like I lost it already. So keep drinking water. That's the key for today. And today I have on a special guest. And that special guest is here, right now. So may as well bring him on, because right here, right now, we have Jack W. Gregory, aka the Accidental Journalist, live here, live. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's good to be here.
Good to have you here. And you know, behind you, there's a bunch of VHS tapes, and that speaks to me. That speaks to my heart right there. I don't know, VHS tapes, there's a different quality about the analog. I like watching a tape. I record my music on cassette tapes, and
Yep.
then I'll make it digital after that. But just having there's something about watching videos on there. And so where you are, but you have all the videos, are they set to the different frequency, the PAL, I believe there's PAL there in Europe?
Yeah, so I have a lot of PAL, which is the British standard. I have some CCAM, which is the European standard, though I don't have a CCAM player at the minute. But I do have a transferable PAL to NTSC, which is your, and I've got a couple of NTSC tapes like Jackass and Assault on District 13. I love American tapes because they come in the cartons. British tapes are, I don't know if your viewers know, but British tapes are in plastic boxes. This is an ex-rental box.
Oh, the little rental box, yeah.
Yeah, this is what used to come at Blockbuster, British Blockbuster, and that's how our tapes came. And obviously your tapes come in cardboard cartons, which is easier for space, and your cartons have got the name of the film on the bottom, so it's easier to stack. These are a bit of a pain, but I do love them a lot. I've had several collections. Lost my last one when I got made homeless, but since I've been sort of back up on my feet, I've got around about 350 tapes all around. This is my garden shed, so they go all the way from the back of me all the way round to about halfway, and then I've got books.
Good combination. And so were there certain movies or books that when you had to get them again, that you had to get the same movies or books again?
Yeah. There's a couple of ones that are sort of really hard to get. Well, a couple of that are really hard to get on DVD, like Clockwork Mice, which is a film about a kid who loves cross-country running and he goes to special school. Well, that was me. I was a kid in special school and I was a captain of the cross-country team. So it really sort of fits well with me.
Wow.
A film called Buddy's Song, starring an 80s pop star by the name of Chesney Hawkes. I actually got to speak to Chesney a couple of months ago on my own podcast, and we've become great friends since. You can't actually get that on any other medium apart from ex-rental VHS.
Why is that?
It's what's called a deleted title, so it was never when they went from sort of VHS to DVD on the British market. They only transferred around about 70% of the titles. The rest of the titles never got brought out. So when they did with DVD to Blu-ray, again they only did about 70% of the titles. So then you get deleted delete titles. So I've got one or two of those. I suppose Darkman is a big one for me. The Street Fighter, I believe that's called Hard Times, Charles Bronson. And I also have two of the Flash movies from the 90s that were on the rental market.
And so, I mean, so was the video stores, was it Blockbuster, and then there was mom and pop ones as well, or the local ones, or what?
I mean, Blockbuster was later on. We had independent ones. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, so there was two video shops in our town, both quite small, both independent. And if we walked a little bit further, I could get higher age titles than I was, because he knew my family, so he would let me get sort of 15s and 18s when I was about 13, which is what your R and X, I guess.
Oh yeah, like the rating systems for how old you have to be to watch them, or supposed to be, or okay.
Yeah, so we have Universal, PG. Then in 1989 they brought out 12 when the first Batman 89 came out, because it was too violent in British cinemas to be a PG, but not violent enough to be a 15. So it was brought out as a 12, but it was 15 in the rental market when it came out on video. And then obviously then we had a 12, 15, and then 18. And that's our sort of age range system, really.
And then Blockbuster came along, and Blockbuster, the Walmart of video stores, came in and destroyed everything. And
yes,
there's so much nostalgia for Blockbuster video, and I don't know, it was always the okay, because they I mean, they don't have the they took away all the, like, so much of the stuff that would be, is not considered acceptable for people to watch for their own standards, and took away the old back room with the the adult movies and stuff. And it was just,
we never had sort of the back room for adult movies. We have what's called private shops, which is where people can go and do that sort of thing. We only ever had up to like 18, but we did have sort of what's called top shelf I suppose, softcore erotica, like Fatal Attraction and Ladies Chattel is Lover and The Escort and Last Tango in Paris and things like that were quite risque even for 18.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was where the top shelf, you said?
Yeah, top shelf.
Okay. Kids can't reach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's I don't know. Yeah, there's one blockbuster left in the world. And it's, I mean, they rent it out as an Airbnb some nights, which is interesting. But yeah, it's like my brother lives right next to it, not next to it, but like a 10-15 minute drive from there. And I mean, it's, I don't know. I wish there were other video stores. I wish they had a different video store. They brought back old video stores, but yeah, they just have this one blockbuster that just is holding on. And yeah, and they made it, it's a destination now for people to go to. But you know, then you got people like you, you know, you go over to the accidental journalist place and you know, borrow some movies from him. If he's into letting his parts of his collection go out at some point.
I love it. I absolutely love it. You just can't beat it. I do wish we had independent video shops. I know there are a couple that have sort of popped up now within the retro market. So, you know, hopefully it'll start coming back. I just don't think you can beat it. It's much better than DVD in my eyes. It's just, yeah.
There was a place, and I lived in Portland, Oregon, that was right across the street from me. It was called Movie Madness, and I mean, it had like the biggest selection. It's still there. I mean, I was living there in 2016, 2017, and just being able to walk across the street and rent VHS tapes was pretty fucking cool. And yeah, they had a huge collection. And then the guy who owned it ended up, I don't know if he died or retired. I think he wanted to retire and, you know, cash out. And they didn't know what they're going to do with everything. And then this like kind of independent movie theater ended up buying it and bought all the stuff. And yeah, they ended up building like a addition onto the thing, and they have a little small theater in there to watch movies. And I mean, I wish there were more places like that. And I mean, it's a pretty cool experience being able to do that, or otherwise. Yeah.
It is. I have a projector in my living room, and that's connected to a VHS player. And you know, during the day, sometimes when the kids are at school, I just close all the curtains. I just whack on an old film like Renegades I watched yesterday, or something like Bloodsport. It make me so happy.
Yeah, there's just something about it. And it just I mean, I don't know, it's so weird watching DVDs or stuff with even newer, you know, I don't want the picture to sound that clear. I don't want the audio to sound that clear. It takes me out of the experience of watching, and that's all I focus on. Not all I focus on, but the majority of what I focus on is just, I wish this wasn't this high quality. They don't need it. They don't need this high quality, but yeah, that's kind of what happens now. So luckily there's still, you know, a good VHS market and
tape market. You know, I've got a few old audio tapes, mainly stand-up comedy and BBC radio things. They did this thing when you brought out Independence Day, the BBC radio, our main radio, they did a dramatization that was inspired by, well, it was done with Fox, but it was inspired by War of the Worlds, and they did it War of the Worlds style, Orson Welles style, and it was just absolutely brilliant. They got all of the British radio presenters and some of the faces of BBC TV, and they got them all in on this radio show where it was just, you know, we were being hit on Independence Day, and it was great. That was the first one I got when I got a tape machine. You can't beat it. Digitize all you want, but I will still keep fighting for physical medium.
Me too. How many tape decks, or how many VCRs do you have? Do you have backup ones?
So I have about 5 VCRs, including a combo TV VCR combo. I have a couple of tape decks. Yes, one of those. I have a couple of Sony tape decks and a couple of personal stereos.
Yes.
I do like to listen to them every now and again. I'm a massive fan of stand-up comedy. And a lot of the old British stand-up comedians were all on tape. You know, I'm always after American stuff as well, because it's just so niche over here. So if any of you guests wants to send me any cassettes with stand-up comedy, then I'd be more than happy.
That was I remember. So I talk about this every so often. So I remember when I was 12 or so, I had a buddy and his dad worked for one of the local radio stations, and he had an Andrew Dice Clay tape, and I can't tell you how many times we listened to that thing, just, you know, as a 12-year-old. And there's a lot of comedy that has gone through, and it's nice listening to it on tape, because, you know, it's one thing to see people, but I don't know. I don't always like watching live specials, because I don't know, it's because I've, you know, pulled back the curtain and kind of know, you know, that it's usually, you know, 3 different shows, and they just take the best parts of each part. And and like, there's something about, and like, I don't know, and seeing something live, or, you know, seeing it, or, you know, hearing it on tape, kind of the same thing. And it's, you kind of, I don't know, I like the spontaneous part of it, of being able to kind of pivot and throw in something wild. A nice, well-written joke is great, but being able to work with the crowd is, you know, kind of a different game. But yeah,
I like to immerse myself in it, you know, get the big noise cancelling headphones and just immerse myself into a show. I even have films that I've converted over to audio tape that I will just listen to, because I know the film's like sort of the back of my hand. But when I'm out, I get quite anxious sometimes, so I can just pop it on and just listen and just get caught into that world. I don't need to see it. It's nice to see it. It's nice to see the pictures that sort of correlate with it, but I'm more than happy just to listen to it.
I gotta wait for those that augmented reality to come in, and then you can start walking around and start, you know, having the show going on in front of you. But it's nice to be able to get lost in them. And there's so much available. It's hard finding cassette tapes right now, like blank cassette tapes, to be able to record So, I mean, just with the amount of stuff that's available online, to just be able to take that and then put it on in a Walkman and throw it up. But I mean, it seems everyone has a special now. It seems though. There's a lot of stuff out there, but there's I mean, the classics are always going to be the classics, and they're classics for a reason, and able to hand out with the stand the test of time. And it's been all right. So who do you like putting on when you're out and about? Or
sometimes I'll listen to Bill Hicks.
Sure.
You know, I do like some of the American comedy. I suppose now the likes of Fluffy, I guess. But I listen to a lot of British stand-up comedians, but from the older days, from my day, sort of like, you probably won't know Jasper Carrott, or who else? The Fast Show, which was a sort of segmented show of stand-up comedy and film segments, which was great. Hale and Pace, they were great comedians. These were all British TV Sunday night icons, and prime time for us was Sunday night 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So I wasn't allowed to watch it when I was a kid, but I always got the tapes. You know, I worked out how to tape from my VCR without my parents hearing it, so I could always sort of listen to it on the way to school, or and I just thought it was great.
How did that did that change any of the way you look at things, being able to hear those? And because I assume there's probably not a lot of kids at your school also who are hearing that. I mean, did you get to
so I grew up in a small mining town, just outside of Wakefield in West Yorkshire, which is in northern England. You've got Yorkshire, Lancashire, and then the northeast, and then Scotland. It's not that far. And in the 80s, 1983, 1984, our Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, in her infinite wisdom, decided to try and shut down all the mines, because she thought it would be cheaper to buy the coal from South Africa and France and other places. So we had all these miners' strikes. My dad was a union man. He worked on British Rail, but he was a union man. So I was brought up around the unions and all the union speakers, and I would listen to them. We had a man called Arthur Scargill, who was the union man. He was the leader of the NUM, which was the National Union of Miners. And then you had Neil Kinnock, who was the Labour MP, sort of the shadow Prime Minister. He was Welsh, but a lot of them shut down, and towns never really recovered. So I was brought up in a nice home in a nice part of the town. My parents owned their own house. So, because they owned their own house and my dad didn't work down the mines and stuff like that, our family weren't really financially affected. So I got better. I was a little bit better off so they could afford to buy a VHS, and that, you know, they could afford to buy tapes and things like that. But a lot of other kids in my town didn't have that ability. When I was on my 8th birthday, I was told I was adopted, which set me on this whole massive journey.
Well,
Um,
what was the reason for that on your 8th birthday?
They had to. I think it was part of the court case that they had to tell me by my 8th birthday, and my mum held it for as long as she could. And I remember having a really nice birthday party, and they bought me a wigwam for the garden, and you know, I had tea and cakes and scones and, you know, all these nice things, platters of, you know, on this little party. And then, you know, later that night, just sat on my mum's knee. You know, I was always a little mum's boy, and she said, you know, we love you, but you've got a real mum out there somewhere that, you know, that couldn't look after you, so we've adopted you, but we love you. And I guess for most people, that would be sort of affirming. For me, it was rejection, I guess. So I went down a whole different route. My behavior was affected. I could barely read all right. I didn't do very well in the normal school, so I was sent to the special school, and I was put in special school system. So I always had a brain, and I've always had a good brain for words and general knowledge and film knowledge. Film was my fallback. Film was the thing that I immersed myself into. You know, and Buddy's Song, like I said earlier on, that was the first film I ever watched that made me think, you know what, I'd love to make a film along that caliber.
So I'm sorry. So was it just you just didn't care about school? And like,
no, I
like it was just other stuff interested you a lot more.
I love learning. I've always loved learning, but I just couldn't get it down on paper. I was dyslexic, but in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't really, you know, dyslexia was known, but it wasn't a freely given diagnosis.
Right.
So I was just seen as a bit thick, a bit stupid, and then sent to a school where, you know, I had a brain and I had this want to learn, but the other kids were all from mining families and things like that were affected, and broken homes, and you know, they didn't want to learn, and it just caught. I was bullied a lot, and you know, because I was seen as posh, and yeah, it was a hard time. I was being abused sexually by some of the teachers and some of the let's say social workers involved, and I was always told that nobody would ever believe me, because I guess the thing that clicked for me was I fell into a sort of a fantasy world, and I didn't know who I was, and I had this existential crisis at 8 years old. So I thought, well, I could be anybody I want. So I started telling a lot of lies, you know, really mad lies about where I'd been on holiday and stuff like that. It was just things that couldn't possibly be true. But it was the way that I coped with it, and by just immersing myself into film. So by the time I was 16, I could break down scenes and things like that in my head, and I could recreate them. But I just couldn't get them on paper.
Recreate them with what? Like,
it's my mind.
Like saying I'm back, or like.
Yeah, I mean, I just play them in my head.
Okay.
You just recreate that scene in my head, and then think how I would have played it, how I would have done it. And yeah, it was just I fell into that sort of fantasy world. but I was good at running. I was captain of the school cross-country team. I could run fast, far, and with the tapes and videos, I worked out quite quickly how to copy. I was making some nice money, running them around the local town. At the school I went to was in the middle of a town. It was a mile anywhere in any direction. And at dinner time, I would have my rucksack and with several videos and tapes and stuff in there, and I would run them and be back in time for pudding, and I would make money. And then with that money, I used to buy cigarettes and get frivolous with them at school. So, you know, I guess trying to buy some way out of the pain.
Were you selling the cigarettes, or were the cigarettes for you?
The cigarettes were for me, but I was giving them away. I was being frivolous with them, but I could afford to. I've always had a good work ethic. So, you know, when I was sort of 15, I was doing a milk round in the morning, then a paper round. Then I was going to school. Then I was doing a paper round after school. And then on a Saturday, I would do a paper round in the morning. I would work in a key cutting shop after that till the afternoon. If in the afternoon, I would work in a plaster making shop, making plaster dado rails and things like that. And then I would clean a supermarket on a Saturday morning. So I always had sort of money coming in when I was like 14, 15, 16. And I was doing that. And the extra money was just, you know, I was able to be a bit frivolous with it at school and buy things like cigarettes and cannabis and stuff like that, I guess.
So how'd you buy cigarettes being under whatever age it is you have to buy cigarettes? Did you shoulder tap some guy, or did you have a fake ID,
everybody,
or did you just go in and buy them?
Everybody knew everybody in my town. And even in sort of the next town over, everybody knew everybody, but these were small independent shops, not like the chains of shops are now. These were small independent shops that, you know, with immigrants that really couldn't be bothered how old you were, just as long as they were getting money.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like £1.11 for 10 cigarettes. You know, or like £2.30 for 20. So, you know, it wasn't a great deal of money for me back then.
So they sold 10 packs? Did they come in 10 packs there?
They came in 10 packs and 20 packs. And there was one brand that came in a 25 pack, a 12 pack and a 25 pack. And they were called Royals.
Do they still do that?
No, they only do 10. They don't only do 20s now. 10s are now banned. They only sell them in 20s. And you're looking at a tenner a packet.
So with a 10, was it just because it was, I mean, do they sell, you know, single cigarettes and stuff?
They did that when I was a kid. About 20p for 25p for a single cigarette.
Yeah.
But this was back in the days when your parents would send you with a note for the neighbours saying, you know, could we have 20 B&H or, you know, 10, whatever, 10 Woodbine. They were popular, Marlborough or whatever, for the neighbours, and you'd give them it and give them the note and you'd pay them and then they would let you have them. This is when they would take signed notes from your parents.
And it worked and it was fine. And I don't know when. I assume that was probably because it was like, I don't think I was smoking yet. So, but I would go and get them. And so then I started when it would have been like 96, 97 or somewhere in there. I think is when I started. And then even back then they would have them. So this, like right next to the school, there's a little corner shop and they would keep them in the back by the coolers. It would like, which was weird. Not up by the register where they are. So you can just go and, walk out, or yeah, go and buy them if you could, or be able to go to the gas station and drive up in a car. And as long as you showed them some sort of ID, they'd give you cigarettes. And as long as you're paying, I mean, who cares?
It's all different now. You can't even have things on packets. They're black packets now, indistinguishable from each other apart from the name. And every packet has got a massive health warning, and then one of the health warning pictures. It's not like it was, back in the day. You're talking sort of 88, 89, 90, and you would go in the shop and it would be like this. They would all be behind the shopkeeper, and you'd go, "Oh, I just want them, please," and they would go, "Yeah, there you go," and then you would pay, and it would be it.
Yeah, and it was okay. And now people in California, I believe, that are under 15 right now can never buy cigarettes or any tobacco product in California ever for the rest of their life.
Yeah, that's like New Zealand.
Yeah,
They've done
okay,
the same.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. That
It is. They haven't done that here yet. It used to be 16 where you could buy cigarettes. It's now 18.
no, it's 21 here
21 now. Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
21 now, I believe. I haven't smoked in about 6 years. I gave up about 6 years ago.
At like what year is it? I think I'm at 9 right now. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's weird. Like, I couldn't imagine being 18 and not being able to buy cigarettes. I mean, and then even alcohol was 21 too. It was easier for me to go buy weed than it was to get alcohol, which was odd.
It's like that now. I live in quite a small town, but there are, it's probably easier to get crack cocaine than it is for somebody to buy cigarettes nowadays.
Yeah. So,
I think.
I don't know why those people that are selling crack aren't selling cigarettes as well. Maybe that's
they do.
Okay, good, okay.
We have this what's called the booze cruise, where people go down to the local port and they go over to France, and then they bring back cheap cigarettes and then they sell them in their house, or cheap tobacco. And the thing about European, a lot of European countries is they don't have the same sort of ban on advertising as we do over here.
Oh yeah.
So they have proper packets and things, but yeah, it's probably, you can go to the local drug dealer and buy cheap vodka and cigarettes and the one-stop addiction shop, I guess.
Yeah. Got to have that hustle of some sort. And I mean, it was just, cigarettes were so much more expensive. So in Oregon, they weren't that expensive, but you go up to Washington, California, or you go up to Canada, and Canada, they were crazy expensive. So I used to bring up cigarettes to my friends up there a lot. But you can only bring so much across the border before they, start questioning you. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. And cigarettes, just how cheap they are everywhere else you go in, or how cheap they are to be made. And it's all you're paying is tax on the stuff. And yeah, same with gas or gasoline, petrol, or whatever you call it. It's all you're paying for. It's just that. Um, Otherwise, yeah, it'd be just cheap little thing. But not quite, not quite. And so then what did you so I mean, so okay, so you were going and buying whatever, selling whatever, and then where did that kind of go? So you were the entrepreneur of the town,
Yeah.
and then where'd that kind of take you?
Well, that took me into sort of shadier places, really. I left school with no qualifications. We do these things over here that's called GCSE in normal schools, which is I suppose you'd call it a GED. But I never did that. So the only thing I left school with was certificates on things like changing a fuse in a plug and riding a 50cc moped. They rewarded bad behavior with really good things like going on the army youth team. So by the time I left school, I could barely read or write my name, but I could teach climbing, caving, canoeing, abseiling. I'd been under most of the North Yorkshire moors every weekend. But I could barely read or write my name, so I wasn't cut out for a proper job. I was put on unemployment benefit. I was just seen as stupid. We did these things called youth training schemes, where you got £35 a week if you were under 18, and you had to go and do lessons, and they would teach you to go into the world of work. And then once you were 18, you did employment training, ET or extra tenor as we used to call it, and that was the same sort of thing. But so that was for £45 a week. And then on the dole at 18, I left home at 17, 18, moved around a few different places, settled in a bed sit, got heavily into drink and drugs and partying and violence, and it was a difficult few years. I lost a friend of mine was stabbed to death outside the nightclub with a bottle. I watched my best friend throw himself in front of a train because he couldn't handle the fact that he was gay in the 90s, because his parents wouldn't understand because they were well-to-do. So I was messed up. Still wreathing at being adopted. So I did anything that I could to make money, to take drugs, to, I got involved with some sort of heavyweight people, did some debt collecting, some bare knuckle fighting on fairgrounds, because I learned that actually punches, I could take them and pain didn't hurt. It was only the perception of pain that hurt for me. And once I learned to take a punch, I learned I could take it pretty well, and I could give back as good as I got, because I sort of channeled that rage.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it went dark for a few years. It went quite dark, and then I moved away. I went to prison. I lost my temper in a nightclub. Saw a guy slapping his missus, and one thing I could never stand was a man that hits a woman. So I offered him outside the nightclub. It was 10 pence a pint that night.
Oh,
And so I drunk a lot. It was watered down, but I drunk a lot. And we went outside at the back of the market stalls. And I got caught on camera stamping on his head. And all I remember was getting dragged off him. Bit stupid to start a fight 300 yards away from the local police station. This is when they started putting CCTV in certain places.
oh yeah.
And yeah, so I didn't do very well in jail. It was quite Victorian. You know, no TVs or anything. You were just allowed a radio in your cell. And it was just, you know, learn how to make a kettle element out of a radio wire and a razor and a match and things like that. And I learned some life skills, but when I got out, I swore I'd never go back. And I'm not saying I haven't been close, because I have. I moved to a different part of the country, the south of the country, started to get sober for the first time, went to rehab, was doing really well, met a woman in Norfolk where I live now, online. I'd started working in back in the days when we had internet cafes.
Okay. Yeah.
And, you know, I'd started working in there. I'd learned to read and write in jail. So started on the MSN chat rooms and things like that. Spent 4 years in Portsmouth and then moved here. I graduated from the Prince's Trust. I stayed sober when I moved down. I was 6 months sober when I moved here, and I managed to stay sober for about 10 years, I guess. My marriage ended. I'd fallen in love with the film industry. I tried making films. I'd written a film. It was liked by certain producers in the British film system. I was going out and I was trying to hack this screenplay that I'd written. And I was drinking again, and I ended up doing drugs again, and my marriage ended, and I ended up just back in a whole mess, which then put me into homelessness. I lost the film that I'd worked on. We were making some promos for it, and I turned up on set one day. I'd had suffering from lymphoma, but I was homeless as well. I was drinking a lot, and I'd done crack that day, and I turned up on set and I was smashed. And they said, "Can you just sign this? It's an actor's release form." And I signed the whole film away for 4 years. So that film will never get made now. Once I got it back, I said it'd never get made. And then I gave up on the film industry, saying I'd never do it. I was sort of in and out of crime, in and out of homelessness. I turned up to 2014, I turned up to a food bank. And it was a coffee morning. So it was great for the homeless people. And I was in there, and one morning I was greeted by this, you know, lovely face, this big smile. I had a Doctor Who t-shirt on, and she said, "Oh, I love Doctor Who." And I've always been a fan of Doctor Who, and we got talking. And after that, I decided, that was around about 9 years ago, last week. And I decided that I wanted to get clean. I really liked her.
Was it because of her that you got clean?
Yeah, I guess, no, sorry, this was around March, I guess. And then June, I hadn't seen her for a little while. And then June, I was coming back from a funeral from Yorkshire. I was off my nut on the train, quite pissed because we got I got a first class carriage on the way back, and I'd started messaging her on Facebook, and we just got talking, and I got home and things went to shit. I started losing my marbles, and then 26th of June 2014, I'm sat in a crack house in the middle of Norwich, Norfolk, and 10 o'clock at night, and I said, I'm sat on the floor, and I was known, you know, I was safe. It was a safe place for me, but I was sat there with a bowl of crack in my hand, and I said, God, don't even know if you exist, but if you do, take my life, or take away this hunger, this thirst for drugs. And I fell asleep on crack cocaine. I was
gonna say you fell asleep on crack.
I fell asleep on crack cocaine.
Wow.
I woke up at 4 minutes past midnight on the 27th of June 2014, and I haven't used a day since.
Whoa.
My will and my life was handed over to the care of God as I understand him. I'm not saying it got any better for a while, but I had no need for drugs. I didn't do drugs. I started to get sober. I started seeing Jo, which was the lady at the food bank. Incidentally, I married her in 2019. We have a family together. Yeah, and we have a wonderful blended family. I started going to a church here, getting better. And then February, March 2015, I started to get really ill because of the life that I'd led before. March the 19th, I started getting really ill. March the 21st, I went into hospital after a really bad weekend, not able to breathe, coughing. I'd lost so much weight. I was 6 stone. I guess around about 78, 80 pounds.
Yeah. Holy shit. How tall are you?
6'1".
Holy shit. Okay.
And yeah, I found myself in a, I guess around about, I'd had my daughter for the weekend, and the Sunday I rang my ex-wife and said, look, can you come and pick her up? I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I'm going to have to call an ambulance. I said, don't call an ambulance. I'll come and pick you up. We'll take you to the hospital. You can give your daughter a kiss and a cuddle so she knows you'll be all right, which I did. We got there about 20 past 4. By 20 past 7, I was dead. Literally, figuratively dead. I'd stopped breathing for 4 minutes, ended up with brain damage through hypoxia. I had tuberculosis, type 2 lung failure, pleurisy, some environmental disease that they hadn't seen in about 30 years because of the poverty that I'd lived in, because of the quality of the drugs that I'd done in the past, and it just all caught up with me. The medication regime that they had me on, and because I'd been clean for a little while, and they had me on sort of quite toxic drugs, which one doctor, who's a friend of mine now, has said it's basically bleach in a needle, which is an anti-infection drug. I call it a personal apocalypse, which is the name of my book. Because I thought I'd caused the apocalypse. I thought that I'd spread this super virulent strain of tuberculosis, whatever else that I had. I had no concept of time. I thought God hated me because of what I'd done, so he decided to end the world. People were dropping dead outside of my room. I was being tortured by the staff there because they just wanted to see me squirm before I died. And I had this almighty psychological breakdown. Convinced that God had ended the world because of me. And I remember the lead preacher from the the church that I was going to, Hope Community Church, I still go to now. Mr. Granley Watkins, and he came to pray with me, pray for my soul, because he was told that we were going to lose me again. And I was attacking people, and I was spitting at people. I was 6 stone, emaciated. I couldn't walk. I wouldn't eat. I had blisters in my mouth. My teeth were falling out. My hair was falling out. It was so bad. It was so bad, and that lasted for about a month.
Whoa.
You know, before that, I'd got a job. You know, I went from not being able to read and write to actually writing policies and terms and conditions for companies. I was really good at it. I would read terms and conditions for fun, but I got made redundant while I was in hospital. It was a few weeks that I was sort of gone mentally. They sectioned me while I was in hospital, and it was a really hard time, a really emotional time. I still get sort of emotional about it. I wouldn't speak to my daughter. She must have been about 5 or 6 at the time. And I couldn't bear. I thought they'd replaced all the people that I love with robots and clones. So I remember doing this Skype call with my daughter, and it looked like she was being controlled as a puppet. I thought she was dead, and it was really hard. And one of the things that helped me click out of it was my ex-wife steaming into the room. And the only time, people could only come in with masks on and contagion suits, which was kind of bizarre. And I was in what's called a negative pressure room, which was pumping out all the crap air and then pumping in really good air. So it was kind of like a safety bubble for. But she came in and she slammed the school photo down on the thing. I wouldn't talk. I went mute. I'm friends with the nurse even to this day. She said, I've never seen it. In my 20 years, never seen it. She said, you went mute. It was hard. It was the hardest time of my life. And then when I died, I believe I went to hell. I know that God doesn't send us to hell, we send ourselves there. And I was being played parts of my life on repeat. And I was being jeered at, and there was sort of ominous presences all around. The hospital it was kind of, hell for me was like, it was the hospital, but there was nobody else there. And I remember having a walk around, but I couldn't walk. It was kind of ethereal, and it was just bizarre. And there was this presence at the end of my bed that felt different. It felt calmer, but I just wouldn't even look at it. And I was rabid, mate. I was absolutely rabid, foaming at the mouth. There were doctors that wouldn't even come near me. There was one doctor that used to stand with his back up against the wall, afraid I was going to lunge out of bed at him or something.
Wow.
Now, I wouldn't wash anything like this, but they did. A few days before, they'd given me this this injection that I'd taken a bad turn to, and I got this rash from here down to my torso. It felt like they burnt me with acid. I thought that's what they'd done. I was really hurting. It was burnt for days, and I was laid there, and I just wouldn't talk. I thought Facebook had gone down, and people were talking about me, putting up pictures of me. This is a man that ended the world. It was dark, man. It was awful. And then I felt this thing at the end of the bed, and I said, oh, why? What do you want? I can't do this tomorrow. What do you want? And it was just calm and gentle, saying, you know who I am. I went, are you Jesus? He went, yeah, I'm Jesus. I said, what have I got to do? He says, you know what you've got to do? And your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. Give it to me. So I went, all right then. Jesus, take this pain away. I take you into my life. Because all the time I've been going to church, I believed in God and I believed in Jesus, but I wouldn't take him into my heart because I wanted to be a bit naughty, or I wanted the option to be a bit naughty.
Yeah.
You know, but that was taken away. And I said, all right. And like that, I was sat up in bed. It was like this darkness had come away from my eyes. I could see in full HD again. One nurse walked in and she went, what? I went, hello, can I have a wash, please? She went running out. There was a whole commotion outside. A doctor come running in, all kerfuffled, and he's checking me, and I'm talking, and he's saying, you shouldn't be talking. You shouldn't even be sat up. You're dying. And I went, well, I'm dying for a wash. My beard was matted. My hair was matted. All I wanted to do was shave my head and cut my beard. And so they brought me in this bowl after they checked me out. And no word of a lie, I have a nurse that will back this up. I got this sponge and I started washing myself from here to here in bed, and these blisters, these things, this rash just started to disappear under the sponge. It just started to peel away, and by the time I finished, it was all gone. She'd gone white. She'd run out, told the doctors. The doctors came running back in, they're checking my chest, they're checking my back. They were baffled. I was asking to eat, you know, and it was just a total change. It was absolute total 1,000,000% change. That old me had died, and what came back was something totally different. They said that if I reached 8.5 stone, I could leave. I'd got £200 redundancy money. So I was having breakfast there that they were giving me. Then an hour later, I was going downstairs to the canteen, having a fry up. Then coming back up and eating chocolate and sweets till dinner time. And then I'd have my dinner. And then an hour later, I'd go down for a second dinner. Then eat sweets. People were bringing me in tins of Spam for the nurses to cook.
The Spam guy?
Yeah, I mean, you've never smelled anything like Spam on a ward. Spam cooking, because the nurses are so proud that you're eating again, they'll cook you a tin of Spam.
I lived right next to the slaughterhouse where they make Spam. I lived it was less than I don't know, maybe I don't know, 1,000 feet. So whatever that would it wasn't far. It was just so yeah, I know the smell of Spam very well.
I love it. I love it. I you know, I don't care how it's made. I love it. But they were bringing me in Spam, and then on a night, there was a pizza kebab shop near the hospital, and I was ordering. They were doing a 2 for 1. You know, 2 for £9.99, 2 12-inch for £9.99, and I was getting it delivered to the ward, and I would have one to myself, and then the nurses would share one. And on the last night, I ran out of money, and Nurse Jackie, who's my friend now, she came in with a tenner in her hand. She went, "We want to let you know that we love you. Your journey has been fantastic. We want to thank you for everything that you've done. Dinner is on us tonight."
Wow.
And that was absolutely amazing. You know, I got out April the 30th, April 29th, April 30th, I guess, after a long old battle. I was on 2 walking sticks for a while. I was still quite emaciated. I was 8.5 stone. And I started going to church. I started working within the church system, started volunteering after a while. And my life started getting better and better. I started staying sober longer and longer. I was about 16, 17 months sober. And I was asked by a friend of mine who's a casting director if I would go and speak to a female director who was making a film about addiction. So I said, yes, okay. So they took me out to an old air base in Norfolk, which is now a big studio. And I met a director by the name of Joanna Hogg, and she was making 2 films called The Souvenir, which were funded by her friend Martin Scorsese. And we had a chat, and, you know, I'd written my first book, you know, A Personal Apocalypse, that was already out, been out a month or 2. And she asked me if I would consult on the film and play Ray. So I did that, and I fell in love with film all over again in a different way. I've been very lucky to be able to go out to different places and play serial killers and policemen, and, you know, I played one of your serial killers, Eric Armstrong. It was absolute sicko, but you know, I played him on Twisted Killers, which is on NBC at the minute, and Oxygen Network. And then I came back. I turned down a part in Jingle Jangle to go back for part 2 of The Souvenir. In between, I'd made a few of my own short films that were selected for, you know, film festivals, and I'd been selected for a few awards that I never won, but it was nice to be sort of recognised.
Yeah, sure.
2017, I decided that I wanted to do something different, and I decided that I wanted to write another book, but I spent 6 months working with escapees of human trafficking, sexual slavery and exploitation, cataloguing their stories, and the book's called Between the Streetlights and Red Lights. And also it was a book telling people what to look for and how to spot trafficking and things like that. That's still doing quite well in America. That still sells on Amazon. It sells a lot more in America than it does here, I guess, because I do a lot of American podcasts. I've just been very blessed that way, which is absolutely great. You have a great survivor network over there. And then that gave me the ability to speak about my story.
And so, I mean, you have people coming up to you, telling you that, like, because of what you said, that they're wanting to tell their story now, or is you getting that at all? Or
yeah, I do this thing called Live and Undrugged, which you know, which is a podcast very similar to this, but I get people with stories that, you know, a lot of them wouldn't necessarily have had the ability to do that. I was told that I would be a voice for the voiceless, and that's what I aspire to do. I felt like I was losing my own voice at one point, and then sort of started looking at my own trauma, and then was able to then start doing stuff like this to keep my own voice sort of afloat. So yeah, I get contacted by people all the time. I'm just about to finish a book on escaping domestic violence and manipulation. And then, yeah, I get sometimes get the odd celebrity that will go, yeah, I'll come on. You know, like Chesney Hawkes, and I get to do a nice little, you know, something that deviates from the powerful sadness, something that's a bit more light-hearted. And yeah, it's just, you know, I've got a few things in the background that I'm doing at the minute, but, you know, my heart will always be with telling my story, I think, because I think once you've been through a certain thing and you've lived a certain way of life, it's your responsibility to educate. You know, I'm of the great thinking of, if you can teach, teach. If you can't teach, well, you can teach, you know, because we need teachers. We need combined shared wisdom. You know, there's knowledge and there's wisdom, and there's not enough wisdom being shared. So it's about getting people on And I've spoken to convicted terrorists, gun runners, drug runners, human traffickers, who've changed their lives, who now work for freeing slaves. You know, I've helped give slaves a voice. I've also helped find my own voice in the fact that I was trafficked as a child in the special school system. I'm a very, very blessed man. I don't always feel it. It's not always easy. In sobriety, you know, I've been 9 years clean on, like I say, on the 27th.
Nice.
I lost my niece, 2-day-old niece, to murder in 2017. 2 months after I lost my biological mum, I found my family, but I lost my biological mum to cancer at the Easter. And then 2 months later, my niece was born. And her father, for some reason, lost his temper when he was looking after her and beat her to death. And he was sent to prison for life with a minimum of 10 years at the age of 23. And within 9 months, he was murdered by his cellmate. So we were left with no answers. So I grieved, and I learned how to cope with grief. I learned what grief meant to me. I then got in touch with other people that had gone through, lost people to murder. You know, now working with a few people on a series and my first feature-length film that I'm going to be directing, called We, which is basically their stories told by an actor. But in the 80s, we had this thing called talking heads, which was, it's basically like we're doing now, but one person to a camera telling a story.
Yeah.
That's how we will be, but it was fictionalized, and they would start light-hearted and comedic, and they would go quite dark. And we had some of the best sort of, you know, like Dame Maggie Smith, you know, obviously the generation now knows her as the teacher from Hogwarts and stuff, but you know, these were really powerful monologues, and that which made me fall. It's what made me fall in love with the monologues. So that is what We is going to be. It's going to be a series of monologues put together to make a feature-length film, starting off light-hearted, but then going for the jugular and talking about things like murder, addiction, violence, you know, things that have happened to people, and how they've sort of changed their lives. And yeah, I'm very blessed, and you know, occasionally I get to talk about videos and things.
Yeah.
You know.
And so where is it, everyone going to be able to find your work and follow you and everything of that nature?
So you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com jwgreg. On, let me think, on Instagram I am j_w_greg. On Twitter I'm at #2geeks1b. On TikTok I'm jwgreg. My website is jwgreg.wordpress.com, and all the interviews I've ever done, including this one, when I get the links, are on there. All the you know, the Live and Undrugged, which is my series, we're now on series 3. They're all on there. All magazine articles about me. You can get access to the films. You can find my books on there, and you can purchase them through Amazon. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, yeah, man, it was great talking with you and getting to, yeah, just yeah, hear your story, hear your points of view on life, and yeah, like I said, it's important to. Wisdom's important. Wisdom's fucking important, and you gotta, yeah, especially when you've had some times, you know, but when you have those times, this is the simplest way to put that together. When you shit your pants, you can't shit your pants anymore. You just
No.
like you're out there. You got that's when you have to fucking just here I is like you learn something, and yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll keep in touch, and I'll probably
Yeah.
have you back on here at some point. So
Yeah, we'll do it again. We'll talk about
Yeah.
film.
Sounds good. All right. Well, hey, we'll have a good rest of your day. All right.
I will do. Thank you, my
All
friend.
right. You're welcome. All right. That's Jack W. Gregory, the accidental journalist. So check him out. There's a lot of ways to check him out. Like I said, like he said. Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. Like, share, subscribe, pass it around. YouTube, Rumble, wherever you listen to podcasts. I don't know. I probably put it in a lot of places, probably in some other countries too. So worldwide, prestige worldwide. So thanks for listening here on the Quantum Global Broadcasting Network, QGBN, with other great shows such as When the Gloves Come Off, Thinking Man's Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is It with Lizzie and Saved by the Ben. And this is brought to you by Stoner Eats Productions, Fred Ben Savage as Fuck, Hypnosis is Great, Hardcore Entertainment, and Sock'emUp.org. Thank you, everybody. And that is the show, man. Boom.
It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker. It's Rusty Diamond, motherfucker.
Ernest! Ernest! Ernest!
Yes, Pee-wee.
You brought the snacks, right?